Growing number of Americans are starting to make the connection. State-run media is colluding with leftists in government in permanent Washington to criminalize any opposition to them. This was commonplace in the USSR. It's commonplace today in communist China, Cuba, and other countries ruled by dictatorial regimes. And now Democrats and some complicit Republicans are bringing that cancer here. Who will fight to preserve America? That's the question we ask in today's preamble. Let's start with state-run media at MSNBS and CNN. Last night, Rachel Maddow interrupted President Trump's rebuttal from Mar-a-Lago, accusing the president of lying. Contrast that with the Chris Salcedo show and Newsmax, as we aired all of Alving Bragg's press conference where he detailed his bastardization of law and the sowing of permanent divisions into the United States. Now, we can credibly say that Newsmax and the Chris Salcedo show is more grounded in journalistic integrity than NBC, even on this show, which is a conservative opinion show. MSNBS, because they are not journalists, in typical left-wing fashion, cannot handle opposing viewpoints, so they just silence them. Democrats and big government Republicans can't stand opposition, so they work to silence free speech and fairness in the justice system, and those politicians lie to do all of it. And they lie a lot.
To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, it's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay.
The Constitution, the Second Amendment, was never absolute. You couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was passed. You couldn't go out and purchase a lot of weaponry.
But our states, everybody thinks somehow the Second Amendment is absolute. You're not allowed to go out and own an automatic weapon. You're not allowed to own a machine gun. You're not allowed to own a flamethrower. You're not allowed to own so many other things. Why in God's name do we allow these weapons of war on our streets and at our schools?
Yeah, everything you just heard there was a lie. And those who share Joe Biden's ideology, who populate the press, they are equally adept at lying.
Donald Trump pleaded not guilty in a Manhattan courtroom, again, to 34 counts of falsifying business records and conspiracy.
Conspiracy is a very effective tool used by prosecutors to charge groups of people and hold them accountable for all acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. But the big question now arises, who is the conspiracy?
In furtherance of that conspiracy, you don't actually have to complete the conspiracy. You don't actually have to go through with it.
Now, the conspiracy count is important because it doesn't just give the district attorney a legal platform to bring in the catch and kill narrative.
You have a conspiracy count that lets you give a narrative that describes the evidence that the grand jury heard and voted on, which is very different than a dry 30 counts of falsifying business records, which is the same paragraph repeated 30 times.
The conspiracy element here would indicate that he conspired with others, right? That there are other people involved in this effort.
Narrative over news. There was no conspiracy charge in Alving Bragg's charging documents. All one needed to do was to search the document for the word conspiracy to know it ain't in there. But the last soundbite you heard there is why MSNBS and CNN spread this conspiracy lie. They not only want to go after President Trump, but they want to leave the door open to go after anyone who supports President Trump. In the heads of the mindless leftists who populate the fake news press and leftists in government, the crime is supporting an America First agenda. The crime is opposing them and their support of totalitarian rule. Some, but not all Republicans, even haters of President Trump, are tepidly speaking out. Mitt Romney issuing a statement, quote, "I believe President Trump's character and conduct make him unfit for office. Even so, I believe the New York prosecutor has stretched to reach felony criminal charges in order to fit a political agenda. No one is above the law, not even former presidents, but everyone is entitled to equal treatment under the law. Prosecutors' overreach sets a dangerous precedent for criminalizing political opponents and damages the public's faith in our justice system," end quote. Oh, you think? Never-Trumper John Bolton actually had the courage to go on camera to decry the Democrats' promotion of Soviet-style justice.
What do you think of the indictment? Well, speaking as someone who very strongly does not want Donald Trump to get the Republican presidential nomination, I'm extraordinarily distressed by this document. I think this is even weaker than I feared it would be. And I think it's easily subject to being dismissed or a quick acquittal for Trump. I can say there is no basis in the statutory language to say that Trump's behavior forms either a contribution or an expenditure under federal law, the two key definitions at issue here.
Okay. But wait. Alvin Bragg said President Trump broke New York laws, if there's such a thing, just like all the violent thugs Alvin Bragg is allowing to get off with, slaps on the wrist. Bolton had an answer for that, too.
And as what I understood the district attorney to say, that he thinks there's a New York election law involved here. All I can say is the Federal Election Campaign Act absolutely preempts any state or local law to the contrary. How could it be otherwise? You've got one law governing corporate finance in a presidential election at the federal level. You're going to have 50 state laws interfering with it. So he's just wrong on the applicability of the New York statute.
He just stopped right there. Alvin Bragg is just wrong. Bolton wasn't kidding on how weak Democrats' case against President Trump is. It's so weak, Democrats couldn't even detail what violations of law Trump committed.
The indictment does not specifically say what those crimes were. We are assuming, perhaps, that they might be election-related. I'm wondering if you can specify what laws were also broken.
Sure. So let me say as an initial matter that the indictment doesn't specify that because the law does not so require.
It's been said that Democrats are emulating their guiding spirit, Lavrenti Beria, the most ruthless and longest-serving secret police chief in Joseph Stalin's reign of terror in the USSR. He coined the phrase, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime." But with Alvin Bragg and his George Soros acolytes, we have to mix in arrogance and a bit of stupidity to come up with the Democrats' new slogan. With Alvin Bragg and his Marxist comrades, the new slogan is, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime." But on second thought, I don't even have to show you the crime. According to Democrats, Trump is guilty because Democrats and Mitch McConnell hate him. That's all you, the little people, need to know. I don't know about you, but I'm not in favor of living in a lawless country cooked up by Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Mitch McConnell, John Cornyn, and the rest of the permanent Washington ruling class. If we are to save our Constitution, our freedoms, and our country, we, the people, need to insist on a better class of politicians, preferably politicians who preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the rule of law.